Ladies and gentlemen, here's tonight's top 10 list.
It was probably the most vivid year of my life. And I was
Coming up.
And I'm grateful that you're sharing
Well,
it
thank you very much.
Jane and Dave together again.
Our first guest has been the very first guest on every first television program we've ever done. Bill Murray. Bill!
It's Sunday morning on CBS, and here again is Charles Osgood.
Are you all right?
I went to the other place. God, is it dead over there?
Nearly 22 years after Bill Murray's memorable entrance as David Letterman's first guest on The Late Show here on CBS, Dave is counting down to his last broadcast this Wednesday night. Visiting Dave this past week at the Ed Sullivan Theater was another Hoosier who worked with Dave way back home in Indiana, our own Jane Pauley.
Dave Letterman.
Nice to see you.
In his final days in the Ed Sullivan Theater, David Letterman is reminiscing.
When they were finishing it up, there was a garbage can here. And I was up in the balcony, and I had a football with me. And I said, let me see if I can drop the football into the trash can from up there. One shot, bang, zoom. And I thought, this is a sign of something. So do we have the thing here? Let's try it again. Do you mind, Jane?
Oh, I'm game.
It seems like you and your boys don't have anything planned.
Well, we had some plans, but we can change them.
Well, we can do anything you want. We have to go up here.
Yeah.
Somebody stay down here. Jane Pauley, ladies and gentlemen.
We were off and running.
Are those properly inflated?
Along the catwalk and into the balcony.
You're not going to let me play. That was so close. Why did I have to say anything?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Ooh, that scared me.
Was that closer than...
Yeah.
I think so.
Then Mr. Letterman, sure. Oh, I'm choking. It's no follow-through.
It took 10 tries.
Yeah!
Thank you very much.
Yeah, woo! I'm sorry. Was that too
That's
much
all I wanted. No,
enthusiasm?
that was perfect.
And what does it mean?
I don't know. I'm just happy I was able to do it.
Yeah, and you were.
Yeah.
And that means you can't leave.
Okay, no, we have to leave.
And leaving he is, with an astonishing lineup of guests in his final weeks on the air.
I'll sit here. This is really a nervous place to sit. I have been honored to be among the 18,000 guests. Do you remember?
Yep.
No, seriously. Do you remember stuff? Do you remember people?
You know, I do. I don't remember things we've done on the show. And here lately, we've been showing video of things we've done on the show. I have no memory of it. No memory of it. And when I get home, Regina will say, well, who was on the show? And then it's like, yeah, who was? I don't know. Was it? It might have been Reese Witherspoon, but then again, might have been Regis Philbin. I'm just not sure.
Would you like to hear what we'd sound like had we been inhaling helium?
I sometimes appeared on Letterman's show in the early days.
Jane's been stricken with some nasty throat virus. It's your show, Dave. Yes, it's...
Once, he thought it would be fun to make our voices sound like we'd inhaled helium. I wasn't so sure.
It's possible that this could be used against you one day.
I want to apologize about the helium thing.
What? See, I don't remember. You were on helium?
If we spoke, our voices sounded like
we were
a
on
little
helium.
like,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't say a word. You did whatever you could to make me.
Right. But see, you behave the way humans are expected to behave. My behavior was aberrant. So I owe you an apology.
No, you.
There's often something apologetic about David Letterman, which goes way back, as we do, having both grown up in Indianapolis. I recalled an appearance we made together in the 70s.
You told the high school kids about your feelings about your success. You said, it's like robbing 7-Elevens. The money's good, but you know you're going to get caught.
Yeah, I hope I said that. In those days, I was, probably not you, waiting to be tapped on the shoulder. Okay, the real guy's here, you can go home now. That's what I was always motivated by, that fear, the fear of failure. And then I have to oh, darn. And then, you know, I wasn't chosen again, so I go back home.
In high school, Letterman was not a candidate for most likely to succeed. But that's where he found his calling.
What did you want to be?
I knew exactly what I wanted to be. My sophomore year in high school, they offered a speech class, public speaking class, so I signed right up. First day of class, everybody has to stand up and give an impromptu speech about themselves. And I got up when it was my turn and I gave the speech. It had to be like 2 minutes or something, and I sat down and I said, wow, that was easy, to myself. And I had never said that about any other class in my academic career prior or after. I couldn't do it in algebra, couldn't do it in English, couldn't do it in history, couldn't do it anywhere. Metal shop, maybe.
After college at Ball State, Letterman became a local jack-of-all TV trades.
I started when I was 20 years old in Indianapolis.
I remember you. The weather and the weekend movies, you were hysterical.
No, maybe not.
Hysterical.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see that once again we've fallen to the prey of political dirty dealings. The higher-ups have removed the border between Indiana and Ohio, making it one giant state. Personally, I'm against it.
Boy, oh boy, America.
One of the most important decisions he ever made was to get serious about comedy and move to Los Angeles.
David Letterman. David.
Within a few years, he landed an appearance on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson that would change his life.
It's white, hot adrenaline. That's all it is. And then you go and you sit down and you talk to Johnny, and it's like you're sitting on the knee of the Lincoln Memorial, and Lincoln is talking to you. You know, it's like, holy God, it's the guy on the $5 bill is talking to me.
I have a feeling from your shot on this show tonight, you're going to be working a lot outside the Comedy Store.
Thank you.
Really, I hope you come back with us.
I'd love to.
More appearances on The Tonight Show led to a morning show.
At 11 a.m., because it was bizarrely a daytime version of what you do now, my office would be filled with people watching. It was brilliant.
It wasn't brilliant, Jane. It was like standing on an overpass looking at a chain reaction collision, you know, that goes, okay, 9 cars, 10 cars. Oh, look, it's 100 cars. It couldn't have been more poisonous. They had to get away from it.
The show lasted just 4 months.
I really thought, that's it. You get one shot and away you go.
Though Letterman was a ratings disaster in daytime, NBC gave him a shot at late night.
I started out, for God's sakes, at 12:30, following Johnny Carson. So that was a pretty safe place for a kid who didn't know what he was doing.
And that's what the network said. Find some kid who doesn't know what he's doing, the only one in America. Oh, that would be, here he is from Indianapolis, Dave Letterman. No.
That's exactly.
And they continued to give you paychecks to do this for them.
Yes. But it was all different. I couldn't get a show now.
For years, Letterman was the heir apparent to his idol, Johnny Carson. But when Carson retired in 1992, the chair went to Jay Leno instead.
There were rumors in the paper you were going to firebomb NBC. You were going to do all these...
Well, I hate waiting in lines, but I do it.
Letterman, deeply and publicly wounded, moved to CBS.
I was disappointed, but to my way of thinking, it was not bitter.
And then this morning, I wake up, and next to me in bed is the head of a peacock. So I don't know.
He turned The Late Show into a comedic laboratory.
Where the hell are the singing cats?
This is not Cats. This is my TV show.
I'm in the wrong theater. Oh.
There were the top 10 lists.
Number 8, I still wear those underpants from Risky Business.
Yeah.
The stupid pet tricks.
Take it to the hoop.
Yeah.
But television's most reliably irreverent personality is feeling kind of nostalgic these days.
When I'm down here during band numbers or during commercial breaks, I will go to various places and try to memorize what it looks like and how I feel and look at the audience and get the scale of things, because even though I've done it for so long, I don't ever want to be without a fairly accurate, fairly vivid impression of this experience.
Goodbye.
By any measure, David Letterman took his craft to new heights. His comic genius recognized by everyone, except himself.
I had this conversation as recently as last evening with my wife, and she will go to this strategy to pep me up.
What does she say?
She says, everything's fine, and you've accomplished some things, and you should be proud of that. And I don't believe her. And so we have to be separated. We go to neutral corners.
Life can be hard work for you.
Well, for anybody, for God's sakes, isn't it, really? I mean, jumping crap. It's, well, there's Sunday Morning. Charles Osgood.
They're grown-ups.
I'll be right back with a little more jumping crap.
He's right. We'll have more of our interview coming up.
Would you like me to do a dance for you?
What?
Hi, Paul.
Okay, oh my God.
Blitzer, what can I do for
you? David, you're really a dear old friend.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So could I suggest tonight you're interviewing Hillary Clinton, the First Lady of our nation.
That's right.
Try not to be a jackass, will you?
Despite legendary anchorman Walter Cronkite's warning, David Letterman's time in the late-night spotlight has had its share of good times and bad times, some of his own creation. Here's more of his interview with Jane Pauley.
You've talked about alcoholism?
Yeah. Oh,
Is that
man.
for real? I mean, you're not talking just about, I drank a lot, but you were or are an alcoholic?
I guess you're always an alcoholic, yeah.
When did it start?
Well, I started drinking when I was about 11.
Really?
Yeah. It was that old thing where my dad used to like scotch and soda. Say, hey, Dave, you want to try one? And I tried one, and I just thought, this is fantastic. And I just kept drinking. It was delightful. I loved everything about it.
It kind of explained your grades.
Yeah, perhaps. But then in high school, it was part of the culture. And in college, it was mandatory. And then when you get out of college, people start to taper off. And I was surprised. I would look around and I thought, where are all my drunk buddies? And I drank right through till I was 34, and I had the show at NBC, and I just said to myself, you're a fool, you're a dumb fool, you can't do this. You know, they just don't give these shows to everybody. You have one, and you drink yourself into trouble. You're done, pal. And I just quit. Never took another drink.
Really?
Yep.
Well, congratulations. That's huge.
Yeah, it was huge, because I'd be dead. I'd just be dead.
Remarkable candor for a man so famously private. Though Letterman's personal life has sometimes become conspicuously public.
I have had sex with women who work for me on this show. Now,
in 2009, he admitted to having liaisons with staffers after a CBS News producer tried to extort money from him.
my wife, Regina, she has been horribly hurt by my behavior. And when
Letterman delivered an on-air apology. The revelation came just months after his marriage to longtime girlfriend Regina Lasko.
Let me tell you, folks, I got my work cut out for me. Wait till you hear what happened to me.
But David Letterman has been no stranger to headlines.
While I was gone, I had quintuple bypass surgery on my heart. Oh! Plus, I got a haircut. Yeah.
I don't know anybody who has had open heart surgery and loved it.
It was great because it was all about me. Oh my God, it was great.
You liked being taken care of?
Oh, it was fantastic. And people would come in and they would worry about me and they would help me out of bed and they would walk me around the wing of the hospital. And then after I got out of the hospital, they would come up to the house and it was delightful.
So it was 5 weeks ago today that these men and women right here saved my life. And
he celebrated his doctors on the air.
I'm telling you, I couldn't have been more proud when these guys carved their initials in me. Honest to God.
He admits his surgery did have a surprising emotional impact.
I did get weepy, which I don't think was depression. It was a joyful weepiness. You know, I would hear a certain song or a certain image, or I be talking to my wife and I would just explode into tears. But it was never that like clinical depression where it's like, I can't get out of bed. Oh my God, I can't get out of bed. It was not that.
Have you ever had that?
Yes, yeah, I've had that. And that's the worst. It's a bottomless pit that sucks you and keeps sucking you down.
One episode or more episodes?
One. It lasted about 6 months.
It was triggered, he says, when he went off prescription medication after a painful outbreak of shingles, which forced him off the air for more than a month. Just recently, Letterman found himself a bit player in Brian Williams' woes. The NBC News anchor was caught embellishing the truth in a story he told on Letterman's show about a helicopter mission in Iraq.
2 of our 4 helicopters were hit by ground fire, including the one I was in.
No kidding.
Typically, Letterman's version begins with a joke.
I went to his dressing room and I said, you know that helicopter story? It would be so much better if you mentioned you were in the chopper that took the hit.
Williams had been a frequent guest on late-night talk shows and reportedly even lobbied to host one.
He would have been fantastic. He would have been great. He's a natural-born broadcaster.
Supposedly he approached NBC about Leno's job and CBS about, about your both.
Yeah,
he had the chops.
Oh, of course, don't you think? Smart, funny, good-looking, knowledgeable.
You can see the future as well as I can, only maybe a little better because you're taller. Do you think he'll end up in comedy?
No, I don't think so. I think this will sort itself out. In a year or two, it will be a dim memory.
As for Letterman himself, his audience well knows.
And I don't want to go all Kathy Lee on you here, but...
his heart belongs to Harry.
And this is, I believe, the reason my life was spared, so that I could be part of this kid's life. There he is. Hey, buddy!
He's looking forward to spending more time with his wife and son, born when Letterman was 56. But first, he has to say goodbye.
You had me on during an important point in my life when I was leaving the Today Show.
Here she is, Jane Pauley. Oh, Jane?
It was probably the most vivid year of my life, and I was a guest on your show.
I don't know that the night before my last show, I would, feel up to coming on a little 2-bit deal like this.
And now you're having what I'm guessing is a profoundly vivid moment in your life, and I'm grateful that you're sharing it.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm naked and afraid because, and it's so cliche, but I'll share it with you anyway. Any enormous uprooting change in my life has petrified me, really petrified me. But once I've come through the other side, the reward has been unimaginable.
This Wednesday night, David Letterman will walk out the stage door for the last time. What's on the other side isn't clear.
I noticed how when you talk about it, you say that you are retiring from the show. Retiring from the show is not the same as I'm retiring.
Right. Yeah. I think I'm trying to make it more palatable to myself, but I doubt that anybody will ever see me again. Yeah.
I doubt that.
Odie actually talks?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
I love you.
Whoa! 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 Whoa!
Ready? Go. Stay. Now stand. Stay. Catch it. Stay. Stay. Catch it. Stay.
Wow.
Stay. Stand. Stay.
Those stupid pet tricks are just one of the features that every David Letterman fan is going to miss. I'll tell you who else is going to miss him. Fellow comedian Jim Gaffigan.
David Letterman is retiring, and I'm having an identity crisis. I don't know what I'm going to do. That brilliant, emotionally distant, yet endearing, grumpy guy whose gap-toothed smile filled my television every night, he somehow shaped my entire adult life. I feel like I'm being abandoned. In a way, Dave and I have spent the past 3 decades together. As an awkward teenager growing up in Indiana, Dave represented a beacon of hope. He was and still remains the Hoosier who made good. Dave didn't just leave Indiana and succeed. He brought Indiana with him and succeeded wildly. Dave made it okay to be funny, smart, and Midwestern. Sure, his style is sarcastic, sardonic, and challenging, but somehow Dave has remained a civil, sincere, self-effacing populist. As a college student, I would attempt to imitate Dave's absurdist style and mimic his ability to make fun of someone while still allowing the person to be in on the joke. Yes, David Letterman was my mentor. He probably didn't know that, and most likely wouldn't care anyway. As a young comedian, appearing on The Late Show with David Letterman was not just my ultimate goal. It was also the only measurable achievement of significance for a young stand-up comedian. When I finally received the call, a peace came over me. I had arrived. I bought myself a suit, did my set, and shook hands with today's Mark Twain. I could die the next day satisfied. I was a real comedian.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Jim Gaffigan. Jim.
I appeared on The Late Show 22 times.
You know what? Here, smell me, Dave. Yeah. See, that's not cologne.
Really?
That's just how I smell. I smell sexy, Dave.
Is that right? Oh, my.
I don't know Dave personally, but like many of you, I got to know him over the last 30 years. I know when Dave is in a great mood. I know when Dave is in a bad mood. I know when Dave dislikes a guest, and I know when Dave is disappointed in himself. When Dave is having a great time, it's genuine. There's nothing phony about Dave. I know it sounds like I'm in love with David Letterman. Well, maybe I am. But don't worry, Dave. I'm already married, and as a retirement gift, I'm giving you my 5 children. All 5. You're welcome.
After 33 years, almost 20,000 guests, and too many laughs to count, Dave takes the stage for one last time. A moment in history that can't be missed. The Late Show with David Letterman, the final show, Wednesday.
Yeah, and what about the wine?
Well, yeah, you need a lot of wine.
In here?
Yeah.
How much?
Oh, about half a bottle or so.
Half a bottle, really?
Remember, this is for a children's birthday party. If you can't use a whole bottle, just use half a bottle.
It's a pleasure for me to introduce my first guest twice, with credits that include Saturday Night Live, the films Meatballs, Caddyshack, Where the Buffalo Roam and Stripes. Bill Murray has become one of the top box office draws in show business, and besides that, he's a very funny man, and it's a pleasure to have him as our next to the last show guest. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Murray. This guy is a professional. If you kids at home want to try something like this, don't forget the protective cake goggles.
Now you gotta have them.
You're playing with fire without the goggles. Bill, nice to see you. God bless you. How are you?
You're looking good, Dave.
I feel good. I think I have some goo here. How have you been, my friend?
I've been all kinds of ways.
Really?
Which ones would you like to hear about?
Well, I know you're a busy man. Tell us what you've been doing, what you've been working on, what's going down.
Well, I did a Christmas show with Paul Schaefer.
Oh, that's right. And yes.
Fantastic show. Tell them about it.
For Netflix?
I tell you, who's on it, Paul? Help me.
Are you kidding? Everybody. Buster Poindexter is in it. Jenny Lewis is in it.
Jenny Lewis is great.
Are you kidding? Jason
Schwartzman.
Schwartzman is in it.
Rashida Jones.
She's fantastic in it.
I know I'm forgetting people, which is a problem. You know, you rarely...
Directed by the same woman who directed...
Oh, Sofia Coppola. Yeah. And her
You're not
brother,
gonna eat
Roman.
that.
No, this is one of the few times you can eat off your shoe.
One of the few times. So there are others. We'll be right back.
You gotta take them.
Wait! What?
I forgot someone on the show, but I also forgot Stevie. Oh, God. Stevie.
What? What's going on?
Oh, my God. I left you guys in there. I'm so sorry. Get out of here. Rachel and Stevie.
Oh, I'm
Dave.
sorry. Careful.
Say hi.
Careful. Easy. Hi. How are you?
Sorry.
Nice to see you. Thank you for being here. Oh, my God. You look like your sisters. Are you?
Does it smell bad to you? Does it smell?
It smells fine. Oh. No, that's fine. You can do it again if you like.
Yeah.
And thank you for the flower. You are also in the cake. Well, we'll be right back with Bill Murray. Bill, it's so nice to see you. You know, let me tell you a little thing that's important to me. I hope it's important to you. You were on our first show here. You were on our first show at NBC, and you became such a big part of our program that the doors through which you entered the first time you were on this show were immediately named and still today are referred to as the Bill Murray doors. Right over there, it's the first exit.
The Bill Murray doors.
Part of show vernacular.
Those are they.
If somebody is going to make an exit or an entrance, we always say, oh, okay, they'll come through the Bill Murray doors. So
that was an exciting day.
Anytime you're here, anytime I'm around you is an exciting day. Now let's talk about the anniversary of Caddyshack. Is it 50 years, 40 years,
It's
20 years?
2,000 years since Caddyshack. No, I think it was 1980 or something like that. So it's, do the math. It's like 30 years.
30 years, yeah?
No, it's 35 years.
And the nice thing about that movie is written by your brother, and then you just came in for a little cameo, and you stole the movie. They had you come back, and you ad-libbed most of your stuff in the movie. That's fantastic, and has become part of film legend and lore.
Well, it was a lot of fun. There were a lot of really funny people. Actually, my brother Brian wrote it with Doug Kenny, the great founder of the Lampoon, and Harold Ramis, the three of them. Harold directed it. And there was Rodney Dangerfield in the movie, Chevy Chase, Sarah Holcomb, some really cute girls. And it was fun. And it was, you know, in those days, if you went to Florida to work in the winter, it was like, who wanted to leave?
Yeah.
So we made it take as long as possible.
Yeah. But your scenes, you just thought of them as you were there, the goofball groundskeeper.
Yeah, that was, that's sort of the only thing I could do. There wasn't much written for me, so and they liked what I was doing, and I'd go back to work at Saturday night, and they'd say, hey, you want to come back? I'm like, yeah, I'll come back. Well, actually, I wasn't even working on Saturday. Yeah, I was. They'd say, come on back again? I'd say, sure. So it was a lot of fun. The kind of most memorable thing is I had this rent-a-car, it was like a money green Lincoln car, like a big old Lincoln. And when I left, they said, okay, where should I put the car? I said, well, just leave it there on the set. And I left it underneath a tree. And like 4 months later, they said, hey, Bill, where's that car? And it was still underneath the tree. I mean, acorns and debris and animals and birds, and it was a mess.
Show business.
Showbiz.
Yeah, that's
You know,
right. Just leave it under the tree.
Things make a career, Dave. They
Yeah,
really
that's
do.
right.
They add up.
Now, when we come back, we want to show a retrospective of your behavior on our program, okay? We'll be right back, everybody.
Join us tomorrow for Dave's final show. An hour of fun and surprises. Also, tickets are still available for June, July, and August. Send your request to Summer Tickets, the Ed Sullivan Theater, 1697 Broadway, New York, New York, 10019.
Spencer Davis group. Fantastic.
Same key.
We have this is a compilation, a montage of all of your appearances. And at the end, we'll chat about what you remember of those experiences, okay?
Okay.
Let's take a look. Bill Murray, Through the Years. Welcome, please, Bill Murray.
I'm in a real ugly mood this
What's the
morning.
matter? What's the matter?
Well, I've been drinking all night long.
Bill Murray is here. They've got a brand new cookbook, Bill Murray Cooking with Toast. Where'd you get the idea for this, Bill?
I love toast.
Are you in pain now?
Well, I don't know.
Oh,
you know, they give you the pills, you know.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
I don't really think they help, but I've forgotten a whole lot of stuff.
It's your life, and isn't it a mystery? It's nobody's business. It's everybody's game.
Do you like mustard, Dave?
Oh, I love mustard. My favorite condiment. Absolutely,
me
without
too.
question. Geez, I wonder who this could be. Hello?
It's me, you jerk.
I'm alright. Nobody worry about me. Why you got to give me the fight? Can't you just let it be? I'm alright. Don't nobody worry about me. You got to give me a fight. Why don't you just let me be?
Oh, my God. Bill, it's a wonderland. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Bill Murray. Oh, Bill. You're the best.
It was fun, boys.
Thank you for everything. It's a lot of fun.
That was really fun.
Yeah.
You know, and I hate to be one of those guys, but do you really, you know, I know you've thought about this a lot, and you know, but it's really, I'm sorry, I got to do a little product placement first.
What?
Yeah, a lot of people call me and said, hey, I know you're going to be on the show. Would you mind wearing my T-shirt or showing my toaster oven or something? I finally
Showing my toaster oven.
I finally settled on this one. It's a brand of vodka called Slovenia vodka. It's from the people of Slovenia.
Now, wait a minute. They're paying you to do this?
He's a friend, and I eat there for free. But anyway, it's over there in the Ninas. If you ever get over the Nina world, it's over there, the Ninas. And we played them in hockey a couple weeks ago and beat them, and they were the greatest, most gracious losers. Want to do a shot?
Yeah, sure. What?
No, come on, cannonball.
No, here.
Come on.
Is there any more cake?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's smooth, folks. It's smooth. It's smooth. It goes down like Slovenian mother's milk. I remember.
That was good.
That was good.
Yeah.
No, you have the world, you know, on a string. You know, it's all going your way, and I know that you feel you've thought about this, that you really should leave and everything, but I don't know if that's. I'm getting, you know, I don't know if that's right, Dave.
Well, now, I appreciate the sentiment, but one wonders, is it the vodka talking here?
Well, we'll find out. But, you know, you've had a wonderful run. You know, you fell in love. You married a virgin who gave birth to an infant, you know, a god child, really. You know, and then the great news is then your wife gave up the virgin thing completely. Good for you. Come on. And it's all you've been rolling ever since. So it's been great. It's great for you, but what about the rest of us? Oh, come on. Oh, don't be that way, Dave. Don't be that way.
I'm just saying, you know.
No, I'm just saying, I don't, you know, and I know that you've had the heads of government here. Bill Clinton was here. George Clooney was here. He was here for a long time.
You're here.
I'm here. And everyone's trying to get you to stay. We want you to stay and not give up. We just want more, Dave. Just more. More. You know, it's been great. It's been great to see you. I mean, when you first came here, you were just a tubby kid from the Hoosierville, you know? And now you look great.
Yeah,
You've been working out, and everything is going your way. It's been great to see you grow from that tubby little Hoosier to the man you are today.
The best part of it is friendships, the friendship you've brought to this program. Thank you for that.
Well, I can't lean on you as a friend. I can't put any pressure on you as a friend. I don't want to be the person to say, you know, that you have to do this. I just think that the people have to speak, and I don't think my place is here trying to, you know, crowbar you into staying for another 30 years. I don't think that's I don't think I should do that.
Right.
I think this is really something that is up to the American people to do, and I'm just going to be one person to try to organize this, if you'll excuse me. Can you help me keep Dave around? Can you help? Come on, let's move. Can you help us? Come on. Let's get in a circle. Let's form up.
Let's go, baby. You got it, right?
All right. Can we sing if we sing loud enough?
Yes,
maybe
do it for Dave. Do it for Dave.
Oh, we are saved. All right, listen, I'll tell you what it is.
Yeah, what up? Bill's here, Bill.
Bill Murray, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Bill. We'll be right back with Bob Dylan.
All we are saying is
Can you help it? Come on. Let's get in a circle. Yeah. Let's go, baby. You got it, right? All right. Can we sing if we sing loud enough? Yeah, what up? Teal's here, Bill. Teal's here. Repeat after me. It's more worldwide all we are saying is more worldwide all we are saying is more worldwide all we are saying is more worldwide all we are saying. You can do a podcast, Dave. More worldwide you can come in just 1 or 2 days a week, like Carson. All we are saying. You can ride your horse to work. More worldwide all we are saying is more worldwide lower that, please. Goes back. Sign this bill. Please, for the coaster, please.
Already against the next one.
Is more worldwide. I know. I got you. Thank you, Just get away from me, man. Watch out for the babies. We're coming back on Broadway.
We're going to take one this way.
It's the Quad Cities that kill you. It's Davenport, really. It's really, honestly, it's Bettendorf that really.
Play golf at the Quad Cities?
Blackhawks Rangers. I'm going to go out. I'm going to try and get out there this year to the Quad Cities Open. Yeah, to the John Deere.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the John Deere is awesome.
It's Bettendorf that kills me.
The one quad of the Quad.
I'm okay with Moline. Okay with Rock Island, Davenport. Kerry Grant.
Camera, if you don't mind.
Okay, yep, looking out of the way.
Like Cinerama.
Whoa! Can't come through, can you get the CPU?
Going right where you two gentlemen are. Now, space to get on the platform. What do you want to do?
stage. What do we want to do? We want to do that and then try to push the thing back in? All right, then bring it to the curb. Bring it to the curb and pull it out.
Guys, you mind if I grab a rose? Yeah, take it. You're good.
We got a dumpster Thursday. Just leave it intact until Thursday. We have 10 guys here. I don't care. What do you say? We'll slide it off, no? Yeah,
Like Janis Joplin, a piece of my heart, a piece of my cake. Piece of letterman cake. Lovely. Delicioso. Cabbages on my road? They were right, super messy.
Yes.
He jumped out.
He jumped out of the cake.
Like a stripper, like
Oh, man. He jumped out of the cake. Probably.
That's the cake.
David Letterman fans are bracing for the big goodbye. Tomorrow night he hosts his final late show on CBS, wrapping up a 3-decade career on late-night TV. Like all of us, we've all enjoyed watching Letterman over all of these years at home. I also enjoyed appearing on his show. I was a target of a few of his jokes. I got to deliver a top 10 line at least once or twice. I even had a dramatic cameo involving bandleader Paul Schaefer and his cape. Watch this.
Beautiful, Wolf.
It was very, very funny. CNN will look back at Letterman's career, his impact on late-night TV. My friend and colleague Jake Tapper is here. He's anchoring a special report later tonight. And I know, Jake, you take a look at some of the funniest moments on The Late Show. Let's watch this. Watch this for a moment.
It's Biff. Can I speak to you a second? Will you people leave me alone? This is an experiment, damn it. The stuff on the right side is tingling. It's tingling. You know what that means? It's working. That's what that means.
David Letterman could seemingly find humor anywhere.
There you go. Oh, God. I'm sorry, Molly.
Look who's here. And by the late 80s, all the cool kids wanted to hang with Dave, including fellow comic Jay Leno, who had come up with Letterman doing stand-up in the 70s.
I'm not the kind of guy to brag, certainly.
Leno was our dream guest. Whatever else was going on in some week or month, we'd go, well, we got Leno next Thursday.
So, all right, Jake, what kind of legacy will David Letterman leave behind?
Well, I think he leaves behind a tremendous legacy when it comes to, first of all, he was one of the first broadcasters to really show behind the scenes, to show the seams of the broadcast, the mistakes that were being made, the cue cards, the guys in the control room. He let the viewer into that world. It's now fairly commonplace. Even on news shows, you do that, much less late night. But he was really an innovator of that. And then also, I think his kind of dry wit really was the zeitgeist for the 80s and 90s. And he had a tremendous influence. In this documentary, we talked to Seth Meyers, we talked to Jimmy Kimmel, Conan O'Brien, all talking about the kind of huge influence he leads behind him.
I know you worked hard on this documentary. Jake, you traveled all over the country. You interviewed all these people. Take us a little bit behind the scenes, and you learned more about David Letterman in the course of this reporting, didn't you?
I learned a lot more. I've been such a big fan of his since when I was a kid, in the 80s and 90s. And one of the things that was so interesting to me is the fact that he was he had such self-loathing during that era. There was such misery, and he was so hard. He was hard on his writers, but very, very hard on himself. And so we talk about not just the fun times, although the documentary is full of hilarious clips, but also the complex person that caused controversy, and obviously had a scandal or two. And then, of course, the big drama of his showdown with Jay Leno over The Tonight Show. So there's a lot of human drama in addition to a lot of hilarity.
Well, talk a little bit about that self-loathing.
Well, I mean, he's just a guy who, and this is not that uncommon with comedians, but, you know, a lot of his humor comes from a very dark place. And even though he's a very crisp and clean broadcaster and somebody for whom wordplay is enjoyable, and he always presented a very confident image, he is somebody who has been racked with self-doubt. And in fact, one of the writers, Steve O'Donnell, who you saw in that clip, talks about how Letterman during commercial breaks would be writing on a pad of paper, "I hate myself, I hate myself," and he would underline it over and over. And I do think that, thankfully for Dave and his family, he has found some serenity, some comfort in the last few years through SSRIs. He takes medication, through meditation, through therapy, but perhaps most importantly, since he became a father. He has an 11-year-old son, Harry, who he talks about, and I really think that's been the most potent elixir of all in terms of his becoming a much happier person.
You also know Stephen Colbert, who's going to be replacing David Letterman in the fall. He will no longer play that character, Stephen Colbert, that we got familiar with over the past few years. You think this is going to work?
You know, it's funny. I was actually with him at the White House Correspondents' Dinner years ago when Colbert got up, left, came back, and told me I just signed a deal to do my own show. And my reaction, like a jerk, was, oh, my God, are you going to be able to do that character for the whole half hour? Because at the time, you know, he would only do it in 2 or 3 minute spurts. And I was worried for my friend. Is he going to be able to do this character for the whole half hour? Well, obviously, he was fairly successful in doing the Stephen Colbert character. Now I can say with complete confidence that the actual Stephen Colbert, who is a charming and hilarious person, I have no worries about that. The concerns I had were a decade ago about the character that he's leaving behind.
We're going to be anxious to see the show later tonight. Jake, thanks very much. And to our viewers out there, please join Jake for a CNN special report. David Letterman Says Goodnight. That airs tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, only here on CNN.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's the bashful, the taciturn, Chris Matthews. Chris, come on out, buddy. Congress 9% approval rating.
It's very simple. Ask yourself in the audience, what have they done lately? Well, that was tough. Welcome back to Hardball. He's been making us laugh for more than 30 years now. David Letterman hosts his last late-night show tomorrow night. In the world of late-night comics, Matt Letterman made us feel that any hometown boy from Indianapolis could poke fun at celebrities and politicians and do it right to their faces. Lizz Winstead is the co-creator of The Daily Show. Let's talk about something really serious, which we were just talking about in my tough interviews just before this. 9/11. And Letterman's reaction to it, he really rose to that occasion, I thought, afterwards.
I do too, and I felt like what he did was, if you'll recall, everybody panicked about what kind of joy we were allowed to have after 9/11, and I think Dave really took the time, and he was amazing with Regis, and he was so heartfelt about saying, I'm not sure that what I've been doing all these years is living up to this moment, but I hope it is, and I really want people to be able to come back to me, and he wanted to sort of be this voice. And really after that time, his monologues got a little more political. He started poking more fun, and he really did take a look, I think, at the world as a whole, the way a lot of people did and a lot of comedians did after 9/11.
Well, here he is, David Letterman, right after 9/11, a week later.
Watching all of this, I wasn't sure that I should be doing a television show, because for 20 years we've been in the city making fun of everything, making fun of the city, making fun of my hair, making fun of Paul, well.
You know, it seems like it reminds me of Johnny Carson. I watched another guy for 30 years, and Carson never talked politics. Nobody could read his politics. Like, we can't read Letterman's. I don't know what Letterman's politics are. And yet, after Robert Kennedy, who was his neighbor at the UN Plaza there, right in New York City on the east side, when Bobby was shot down, he came on and just blew us away by saying, we got to do something about handgun control. Not gun control, handgun control. And asked us all to write our congressman. And I did. And I remember that was so unique. And I guess Letterman, this was so close to home, being in Midtown at the Ed Sullivan Theater, right up the street, basically, from 9/11. Why do you think it grabbed him as powerfully as it did, that moment?
I think for Letterman and for so many comics, I think we all did a self-assessment about what have I been saying? What have I been joking about? Have I been frivolous? Have I been wasting my time asking people to watch me and not saying anything? And I think Letterman just took stock, like so many people did, about what was the purpose of the monologue? What was the purpose of the jokes? And I think comedy's so powerful that it takes me aback to think that Letterman didn't really even understand the joy that humor really brings. There's that great old movie, Sullivan's Travels. I don't know if you've seen that movie, Chris, but it's a great one, where a guy's a journalist, 1939, and he wants to go and follow the path of hobos and see what they're going through. And really, when he got into the lives of the people who were riding the rails and that were hobos at the time, they just wanted to laugh. Their lives were hard and they wanted to laugh.
Right? Preston Sturgis. Anyway, during the White House Correspondents' Dinner in 2007, Letterman let George W. Bush skewer himself. Let's watch.
Here we go, number 10. Oh! Number 7. Number 4. Number 3. And the number 1 favorite George W. Bush moment.
Did he just spit there? Presidents aren't supposed to spit, at least not obviously. I thought the Hoosier part of it was interesting. The country boy, in a sense, the big, so he comes out with the big feet, and he has always interesting colored socks on. There's something hick about him that I think he was selling, and very effectively so. He wasn't a big city guy. There's something from the country about him.
The Midwestern guys. You had Carson from Norfolk, Nebraska. You have Letterman from Indiana. And I think what was so cool about Dave was that he was the first guy to really open up that door of saying, I'm a regular guy who's going to take the shine off all this Hollywood bull hockey and really call people out. And he did it in kind of an aw shucks way with a little bit of snark that lets celebrities laugh at themselves a little bit. And as that developed, you really saw so much self-deprecation from people that, oftentimes we would revere them. And now Letterman took the shine off of it. And I love that about him. And it's always fun when somebody who you admire and respect is your voice as the viewer.
Liz, how about him telling Jane Pauley this Sunday morning on CBS Sunday Morning that we'll never see him again? Like, he's not going to write op-ed pieces. He's not going to show up as a cameo in TV shows. He's not going to be doing guest hosting and stuff. That he's made enough money, I guess, and he's just going home. That's unique in showbiz.
Johnny did that too.
Yeah, he did. He went home.
And I think that is a life fulfilled. And that is somebody who said, in my mind anyway, I did something that's really great, and whatever my next chapter is, it's going to be to embrace some privacy. When you haven't had it for 30 years, I'm sure he's yearning to just grill in his yard, spend time with his kid.
I think you're right. I can see
the heart attack, I think, is another wake-up call, in the series of things. I think he was like, I really want to go out with some love in my heart.
Liz, I can see him in that varsity jacket and his sneakers and go out there and just show up at the corner store once in a while, and that's his public, and that's enough.
Right.
Thank you so much, Lizz Winstead, for that charming insight. I'm not always sarcastic, by the way. I meant that. Up next, there's another big story out there today.
Welcome to the program, Paul. Thank you very much for dropping by.
Where the hell are the singing cats?
No, no. This is not Cats. This is my TV show. theater. Oh, she's very good and hysterical.
Despite an absence of singing cats, The Late Show with David Letterman premiered on CBS on August 30th, 1993. And I remember watching that show, even as a teenager, understood what a big deal it was. Tomorrow not only marks the final Late Show, but it also marks the end of a career in late-night television that spanned over 3 decades. I met up with a man who literally wrote the book on the late-night wars, veteran media reporter Bill Carter, outside the Ed Sullivan Theater to discuss how Letterman changed the late-night landscape. All right, so tomorrow is the big final night.
Yeah.
It's funny, I was remembering, I think I found myself emotionally affected by it, even though, like, well, I don't know David Letterman. Why is it emotionally affecting me? And then I realized it was because I remember watching the first one from here, and that's a long time ago.
It is, and I remember being here, standing in the street of the day of it, and it was a hot day, and a guy from Minnesota came, and he had carved Dave's head in a thing of butter.
I remember
that. It was melting here on the street, and it was a huge scene, just like it's going to be tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a huge. It's already a huge scene here today.
Yeah.
That moment was such a distinct moment in pop cultural history, not just in television history. Late night, obviously, you wrote extensively about this. What was it about that sort of period, that rivalry that got set up, the competition, all the attention?
It was all these things coming together, because obviously the idea of whoever's going to succeed Johnny Carson was a huge thing. But then when David Letterman, who was expected to get it for 11 years and didn't get it, then it became sort of, there was this whole almost Shakespearean aspect to it. Like the royalty that, the kingdom had turned over.
Like a war of succession.
It was like that. But there were also, these two guys had such interconnected lives, because Dave had learned how to do stand-up watching Jay. Jay had learned how to do TV watching Dave. He became Dave's favorite guest when he was on his Late Show.
Was on all the time.
All the time. So they had this interconnection, and that was part of it. But also, it was a network taking on The Tonight Show, really taking it on, and the network had never succeeded doing that ever before.
And so what happens is it succeeds from a rating standpoint in the beginning, and then...
It always succeeded from a rating, but it was #1 for...
Right,
yeah,
and then Jay moves ahead.
Right.
And it's really interesting to listen to Letterman now.
Yeah. Well, it's always interesting.
Well, I've been reading all these interviews that he's doing, and you realize that, like, him being #2, it's still at some level nagged at him.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, it's like...
Oh,
and it's like, you want to say, you're David Letterman. Like,
exactly.
Who the F cares?
Well, like, he never cared about anything so much ever in his entire life as getting The Tonight Show. From the time he was a young guy in Indiana, it was his dream to do it. And he only started telling people after he started doing stand-up comedy, but that was his dream. So not to get that always nagged at him, and it scarred him. And I used to say he picks at the scar, like he couldn't let it go. Right. He couldn't let it go, even though he succeeded. And the guy was making over $30 million a year. He was so influential. He was way more influential than any other talk show host.
Exactly. He's beloved, and and everyone sort of coming up in that generation of comics cites him.
Of course, and his impact is enormous, and you see it across comedy, because it's not just in late night. You see it in commercials, the attitude, the sort of ironic detachment.
Yeah, what is that? How would you sort of characterize that influence?
It is this sort of, I'm in this thing, but I'm also commenting on it from the outside, and making it sort of a parody, but I'm also taking part in it.
And there's also, I think, the comedic sensibility that he really had when he was doing The Late Show after The Tonight Show, that brought over quite a little bit, which you see everywhere. It's so ubiquitous in advertising, which is the kind of, like, something is funny because it's random, and I'm going to hold it out there long enough that you think about it and it becomes funny.
Right, exactly. It's not. They used to call that found humor on the Letterman Show. It was not scripted. It was just some idea they had that sounded funny. And if you put Dave in that situation, he would make it funny. Like, he'd go to a store that was just bulbs, right? Just bulbs. And then he'd order shade. He'd always, I want a lampshade. They said, no, we only have bulbs. And he would just do something out of nothing. And they looked for that. They looked for crazy ideas. Like, one idea he particularly liked was they took a humidifier and a dehumidifier.
Right. And had them race each other.
Fight each other.
Right.
That's just a funny idea.
That, to me, that you see now in Fallon particularly, these kind of self-contained bits like that. Like, that was before a thing could go viral.
Yes,
but
of course.
If the internet, if Hulu had been around then, that completely would have done that, right?
In those days, it went viral through word of mouth.
Right.
Everybody would say, did you see what Letterman did last night? And that's how it went viral. We see Jimmy Fallon and do a contest with the guests. Well, Dave did like elevator races with the guests.
Right.
He questioned guests instead of putting them in chairs, put them in barber chairs. He wanted to mix up the format. That's one of the things he did, and you can see everybody else doing that.
One of the things I read in the interview was talking about they would do all these weird things, and clearly they had so much freedom following Carson. And then he talked about the pressure when they came over here.
Yeah.
And talking about when you have two options to do the weird thing or the conventional thing, you struggle over it, but obviously in retrospect you want to do the weird thing. Did the convention, did the ratings pressure, you think, affect what this show became when it was?
It did partly, because there was a period of time where they looked so closely into what the Tonight Show was doing, and if the Tonight booked somebody, they'd try to book somebody who's different and similar, and it became like, what big thing can we do? And it was too splashy in some ways, because a lot of the best ideas that Dave did were small ideas, and they tried to do bigger and more elaborate ideas all the time, and I don't think that was his strength. I think it was much more him being clever and witty.
One of the things that strikes me now that I couldn't appreciate before until I became a television broadcaster was the hardest thing to do on TV is to be natural, is to be calm. The adrenaline kicks in, and people that are really good at it. Carson was the master of this, coolness, right?
Right.
Letterman is, to me, that's the most remarkable thing as a broadcaster.
There's no doubt.
He sits there, and it's become truer and truer. If you go back and look at early stuff, he's got much more nervous energy, but now, at this stage in his career, he sits there. I'll never forget the monologue he did after 9/11, where he just came out and he just talked. And it was just so, he's so present. And that's a really inimitable kind of quality.
And the word that many of the people around him have used is authentic. That's him. He's authentic. A lot of times the hosts are doing a little version of themselves, or they're certainly performing, but this guy's real, and the guests really like that, and sometimes it scared them.
Right.
Because he was very intense, and if they weren't pleasing him, he'd let them know. But it was real. There was much more of a real connection going on there. And the really strange thing about that is that Dave, off the stage, was very diffident, and he didn't really like interacting much with people. But when he was on the air, he came alive. And he said to me on several occasions, he never felt fully alive except for 1 hour a day when he made this show.
My great thanks to Bill Carter for a great conversation. Still ahead.
Began on the agreement.
David Axelrod, I have to interrupt you because there's a guy from Chicago who's just kind of barged in here. I'm going to put him aside, but Bill Murray, you know, I told people there might be a surprise guest tonight, but he's like a wicked, unreliable guy, and we weren't sure. No, this guy. Do you mind if we finish talking about Elizabeth Warren and Hillary Clinton?
Elizabeth Warren?
Yeah.
Get to that now.
Okay, and will you're not going to leave, right? You're going to
have Jim Downey in the ante room.
Oh, good. And we'll have a little chat. We'll have a little chat.
It's good to see you.
Thank you very much for doing this. Really appreciate it. So, David, you know, these Chicago guys, they just...
I know. I'd rather talk about the Cubs anyway, so bring them back.
All right, well, we can do that. So, David, what I was struck by... David Axelrod, Annie Linsky, and Joy Reid, thank you for joining me tonight. Now, this is normally the spot in the show where we tell you what's coming up. What else do I have to say? If we can get a camera over there, you're going to find a guy who worked in this building, a couple of guys worked in this building for a very long time, former Saturday Night Live writer and former head writer of the David Letterman Show, Jim Downey, and his old office roommate from Saturday Night Live. That is, I think, it looks like Bill Murray. Is that Bill Murray over there? Yeah, that's Bill Murray. We'll be back.
And Bill, we saw you on TV last night, all right?
Well, we have a brand new segment. It's entitled Me in 2 Weeks. Take a look.
A New York man is facing charges all because he couldn't get macaroni and cheese at a rest stop.
As you know, David Letterman takes his final bow tomorrow night, a couple of blocks from here, at the Ed Sullivan Theater. And joining us now, the guy who's going to be sitting there with him, Bill Murray. And who is this? Your security guy?
This is my friend, Jim Downey.
Jim Downey,
who was the great head writer of the show for many years. When I first arrived,
head writer of Letterman,
Well,
after
Letterman is like,
and
but he was
SNL.
really the head writer of Saturday Night Live. And when I first came to Saturday Night Live, they gave me an office. And it was with this guy, who was from Joliet, Illinois. They put the two Illinois guys together. And I honestly didn't understand him for a very long time. But then I understood that he didn't live in judgment at all. He was just the sweetest and most wonderful, as well as being the smartest and the funniest.
Now, you know, when you were sitting over there and we were going to the break, I'm not sure that we picked up that your chair fell over there. I think the audience might have seen it.
A defective chair
so
broke.
You're
That's
playing
what
injured
happened.
right now. This is like you in the middle of an NFL game who's just been, you know,
I played
sacked.
hurt. I just did the Letterman show, then went to dinner, had oysters, rosé wine, red wine, duck, and some kind
red
of
wine.
green grass fed hanger steak, and then rushed here to do your show just because Jim said that you wanted him to come on the show. Would you mind coming? So I said, I think you're doing great.
Do you remember?
You're doing great. And when he said, "Would you come?" It wasn't a question.
Sweetest guy in show
business. Your girls here, those brutal. I don't know where you get these women that push people around.
The handlers, yeah. Yeah.
God, they pushed me in that chair, and the chair was not balanced properly, and I went down and I hurt myself properly. And
not the first time you've been injured in this building, right?
You know, I don't.
Well, there have been other complaints about that chair. That's my understanding, anyway, that were ignored. So I don't know.
That'll be in the litigation. So you may not remember this, but we were when Jim was offered the head writer job at Letterman. We were talking about, we were all upstate, and we're playing tennis in Jim's tennis court, and we were talking about, should he take this job? And I remember thinking, I don't know, a late night talk show, you know, why would you want to do that? You were kind of encouraging him to do it, and when you decided to do it, did you have a good feel for what you were getting into? I mean, did you think this is a version of Saturday Night, but it's 5 days a week?
I didn't think it was very much like Saturday Night Live, but I loved Letterman's mind and sense of humor, and the person who actually introduced me to Letterman was my mother, who you knew, Lawrence, and Bill knew, who called me about his morning show in the summer of 1980 and said, "This is the funniest show. It's so much funnier than the show you work on." And so I started watching it, and I loved it. And I was aware of who David was from he used to guest host for Carson. And so when the show started up, I got a call like they were interested if I would want to write for the show, and I was actually tied up with a prior commitment, but I just wanted to meet Dave. So I said, yeah, I am. And so I went and had a meeting with him and brought in some material, and they offered me the head writing job because I know that Meryl Marco, who ended up being the first writer, with Dave, really did not want to be Dave's girlfriend and the head writer of the show. Right. And so
And you wanted to be Dave's girlfriend and the head writer of the show. So.
Yeah, but I realized that was not going to happen from the first meeting. But
That's a lie.
Well, okay, but I said that I as soon as I could finish this project, I would come back and do it. And so I joined the show later, like end of the summer of '82. But that's when I probably discussed it with you. But I didn't know if I'd be good at that kind of thing, but I loved Dave's show.
Yeah.
I loved him, you know.
Let's take a look. 33 years ago, or whatever it was, 30-something years ago, your first shot with Dave.
Where are
it's somewhere here. The control room, it says here on a piece of paper.
Hi, Bill. How's it going? Fine. Nice to see you.
Good.
Thanks for being on the show. I certainly appreciate that.
I missed the first part of the show, by the way. What happened? Is it going well? I know this is the first show, and I think this guy needs a little support. Dave Letterman. All right, okay, good. All right, okay.
Where were we?
Jim, how important were the guests? I know you guys were concentrating on the writing, the monologue, all that stuff. But these guys, in many ways, carried the show. In fact, when Bill was on, in every way, he carried the show.
Well, Bill was a very important kind of guest because apart from everything else, Bill sort of gave the show credibility, you know, having him on. But to be honest with you, for the most part, the guests were treated as like comedy objects that Dave could play off as not as human beings in the normal sense, but as objects to goof off.
Right. Yeah,
and so Billy was different, but we had a lot of strange people. I mean, the kind of people that we brought to America's attention were like Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens, this guy Brother Theodore, I think must now be deceased. I'm not sure, but he, you know, various eccentric type people, and then comics who were friends of Dave's. You know, George Miller, who was also unfortunately deceased.
What did it feel like there in the chair? Because when I'm looking at it, Dave with you is part audience. Part of him is just audience, sitting back, enjoying this, what you've come here to do, as much as I am at home, and yet he's part of what you're doing at the same time.
It was a fun gig. It was a fun gig. Sorry, it was fun because you were there and you saw that the ordinary guests on his show, especially in the early days, he'd give you, if you weren't funny and good in the first couple of minutes, good night, everybody. Thanks very much. Jim Downey, thanks so much. Jim Downey. And you were gone like that. Yeah. So if you weren't good, you were gone. And, you know, good for him. That was great. He set a standard. He set a tone that you had to be good. You didn't show up and go like, yeah, it turns out I got a movie coming out. You know, that. Good night, everybody. You were gone instantly. So it was fun, but the writers were really great on it, you know, and depending upon how game you were, the writers were guys like Jim and, you know,
Steve and George Meyer.
And people
Andy
who would
Parker.
say, how about this idea? And because you were sort of like unfortunately, you could say like a movie star idiot kind of, you could go, it's not cool. I always felt like, what the hell, let's play. Because it was kind of like Dave was, you know, Dave had to make his bones. You know, Dave had to make his bones. And because he'd been so severe with people already, you felt like, okay, these are the guys Dave's chosen, his writers. You know, he's insisting that you be of this standard. I always felt, come on, let's try whatever you guys got. Let's try whatever you guys got. Those guys were extraordinary. They came up with great ideas. George and Steve and Jim, and all these guys came up with great stuff. And you could, because, you know, I don't think most people understand, but, you know, Dave throws a part of himself out there. George and Steve and Jim throw part of themselves, and you throw part of yourself. And the collective makes something that's better than any individual could have created.
All right.
So then we made stuff that was.
We got commercials to do. We're gonna be right back.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Murray.
But I just can't refuse.
I'm so disappointed that you changed to come over here. So that's the taping earlier tonight that you did with Dave. You're the final guest. And so talk about what that room was like tonight. Obviously, the most important night that you've been there.
Well, if you've been watching, you see that there's an amazing amount of power in the room. There's a lot of emotion in the room. And even to think, okay, here's what I'll do, and that'll be kind of funny, and this will be funny. And I talked with Jim about what I was going to do, and he threw some things at me, and, you know, just various friends. Everyone wants to be in on it. Everyone has ideas. Like my friend Mitch Glazer from California said, oh, you should handcuff yourself to Dave. That was like a week ago.
Yeah.
Well, George Clooney did it a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
So there are all kinds of people want to be involved. Everyone is feeling it. And Dave is at some incredible level of capability right now. People come out and they can do anything, and he just floats above everything.
He is, yes.
He's really in a different plane than the rest of us right now.
Did you feel pressure tonight as the final guest?
Well, I know that pressure is a false thing. I know that it's a false thing.
It's something you're doing to yourself.
Well, it's something other people are doing to yourself. Yeah. I knew it was a false thing, and I kept feeling it. I was like, oh my gosh, feel this pressure. All the crew wants you to really kill it.
Yeah.
All these people whose jobs are going to end in 2 days. All these people whose viewing is going to end in 2 days want you to be so great. So they want you to really be great. And I'm like, well, I know that that's all false. I can't accept that. I can't wear that out there with me. I have to be empty of all that and just sort of be with the guy. I did okay. Certainly early on I was pretty good. But I did okay to be his friend and his fellow professional for a while. But you probably watched it a little better than I did after that point.
I thought you did great, and I thought that what with Dave, it's always about he was always brutally honest. He had such an ethic about. He never wanted to be like an ass-kissing kind of host who laughed along and sucked up to. He wanted to book guests that he could genuinely like, but he also wanted to treat them like the way you treat a friend who you tease gently, you rib them, but it's not an angry or ugly thing. And he finally achieved this period after a certain amount of time on the air where he became just the perfect talk show host because there was nothing false about it. You came on, he reacted in a normal human way, never fake, and it was always entertaining. Like even when he wasn't entirely supportive, and that's what made him different from everyone else who'd ever done it before. And it made it when we were writing for him. What we were trying to do was we created things. Like we've always felt like we were like making assists, you know, and it was Dave who was sinking the three-pointer from the corner, you know, but we were setting him up, putting him in a position where his mind in that moment would go to something brilliant.
All right, I got to get some commercials in.
All right.
Gotta take a break. Gotta take a break. We can keep talking. We're allowed to talk during the commercials.
Okay, we can go over, right?
But they won't see it.
No, it's just us. Just us. It'll be the gold. We can do the good stuff here. Yes.
Are you dumping us?
No.
That was pretty cool.
Jim, on Dave, before we go, I got a couple of minutes left. He turned comedy. He turned it a notch or two when he came in. We'd never seen this before. Can you describe it, what that was?
Well, he he certainly made language much more important than it had been. He was, I remember one quick story, if I can make it quick. We used to do a thing where we were obsessed with our own little studio, and we were renovating Dave's desk one time and adding a phone book caddy to his desk in the days when you needed a phone book. And I remember as the studio stagehand is drilling the holes, Dave is sort of like wistfully just watching him drill, and he goes like, God, an electric drill, I mean, if our show, but if we got some budget for the show here, our plan was always to get ourselves a 3-speed drill. And then if, God willing, the ratings really jump, a variable speed drill.
All right. Well, it is 11 p.m.
No one else.
We're at 11 p.m. We're out of time. We're into overtime. Charles Mitchum, Michael Kahn, Jim Downey, Bill Murray, thank you all very much. Thank you
Charles,
very much for
you
tonight.
must have something you want to say.
He's going to have to say it off camera. We can keep talking, but we're going to go to another show on this network. Chris Hayes is up next.
Redefined late-night television.
Tonight, a steady stream of celebrities arrive for David Letterman's final goodbye. We have several crews covering his last show and the Letterman legacy. Let's start live outside the Ed Sullivan Theater with CBS 2's Hazel Sanchez. Hazel?
Well, all day long, we've been watching fans stopping by here at the Ed Sullivan Theater, taking pictures, and also reminiscing about their favorite Letterman gimmick, whether it was his top 10 list or stupid pet tricks. And judging by the celebrity guests we've been watching showing up here at the theater, this final late show is going to be awesome. David Letterman is clearly loved, evident by the crowds gathered outside Ed Sullivan Theater and the long list of celebrity friends who have shown up for his final farewell to late-night TV. Tonight's Late Show guests make up a comedian's who's who of sorts, including Steve Martin, Jerry Seinfeld, Tina Fey, Jim Carrey, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Longtime fans like Paul Sereno are shedding tears for Letterman, the man who they say made them laugh the most.
Every night on Letterman, you'll see something funny and something you've never seen before, something that'll make you laugh. He's original, he speaks from his heart, and he just spoke to me for my whole life.
Now, after nearly 34 years, David Letterman will no longer grace our TVs after the late news. His sidekicks, bandleader Paul Schaefer, stage manager Biff Henderson, and Hello Deli's Rupert G. say it's hard to say goodbye.
It's going to be even more difficult knowing, every day coming to work from now on that he's not around here.
It's sort of bittersweet, I guess, in a way, I'm sad to see it end, but, like everything else in life, things end, and this is it, at least for now.
These are the lucky few who won an online lottery to witness Letterman's historic exit.
We are so excited that they didn't say what was going to happen, that we're going to get to see it first.
Fans say Dave is one of a kind, and they'll miss staying up with him.
I love things like the monkey cam and the Velcro wall, and she was talking about Rupert earlier and the stuff he did with that, the top 10 list. He's just a very special kind of performer. I don't know if he appreciates how special it is.
I hate to see him go because that's probably it for me.
Why do you say that?
Oh, I just like Letterman, so I'm probably not going to watch anything else that late,
So now you're just going to go to bed after the news.
Exactly. You're right.
And along with his celebrity guests, Dave's wife and son will be here for his final farewell. And a Late Show insider tells me that the show will be filled with plenty of surprises, including ones that Dave doesn't even know about. So it's a show that we definitely don't want to miss. We're live in Midtown. Hazel Sanchez, CBS 2 News.
Okay, Hazel, thank you. Letterman may be leaving late night, but not without leaving his mark. CBS 2's Diane Macedo looks at his influence, his broad influence on pop culture.
Long before there were viral videos, there was David Letterman.
I kind of liked it when he dropped the watermelons off the top of the building or rode his horse down Broadway. That was probably my favorite.
Television just doesn't get any better than that, does it?
It was around Christmas time, and Letterman was on a go-kart, and he drove the go-kart into the tree, and the tree fell down.
In fact, not too many people did a lot of things that Letterman did. Television curator David Bushman says in many cases, nobody did.
This whole self-awareness and irony, that was really his innovation more than anyone else's, and it's been so lasting.
Moments like the David Letterman Christmas special.
He introduced his wife and his 3 children, and they all came out and they acted like this was a regular Christmas special, sentimental, emotional, and of course in reality none of these people were related to him in any way whatsoever.
Or regular features like stupid pet tricks, and not just 4-legged pets.
He took this convention and he totally twisted it in his own way, and that was really brilliant.
And in many ways, Letterman made New York City a star as much as he made himself one.
Well, I do like the way that he got the local deli guy out.
We'd go to Rupert's Deli just to say hello to him.
I love that he had his mom on a lot.
Or he would bring the people of New York into the show, and it wasn't just the celebrities.
Though many celebrities say Letterman did change things for them as well. But while he's famous for laughs, Letterman's most impactful moments might be his serious ones, like his first show after 9/11.
If you didn't believe it before, you can absolutely believe it now. New York City is the greatest city in the world.
And it was because he was known for all those laughs. Bushman said when he finally decided to approach things very seriously, it was very impactful. And everyone we talked to today said all of these things boiled down to they felt Letterman was real, and his fearlessness when it came to taking risks has ushered in a whole new era of television and a very long-lasting legacy.
Yes, real is a word we're going to hear a lot of.
And he never compromised.
No.
That was the other thing that actually we kept hearing, that he never compromised. When they wanted him to move to L.A., he wouldn't do it, and so on. So
did it his way.
Exactly. It worked.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank you.
As Dave prepares to say goodbye, here's a look at some of the notable statistics during his 22-year career here at CBS. Letterman hosted 6,028 late shows, and he read 4,605 top 10 lists.
And how about this? He interviewed 19,932 guests on the program. The most frequent one, none other than the great Regis Philbin, with 150 appearances.
But now you're leaving.
Yeah, that's right.
So where does that leave Regis?
I don't care.
Where am I going to go?
I don't know.
These people don't know where I am.
I got my own problems.
And Jack Hanna is the runner-up to the most frequent late show guest. Regis said he would be there because he was on standby because he lives on the Upper West Side. And if guests didn't show up, he would be the guy.
Just in case.
Regis, the go-to guy. Coming up a little bit later on in this broadcast, we'll have much more for you, including Regis's retirement advice for Dave, plus a list of who you want to see as a guest on the Late Show, the final one. There is still time to head to our Facebook page and vote for your pick. And we will highlight clips throughout the program like this one.
I'm going to do a dance for you.
What?
Hi, Paul.
Okay, oh my God.
Well, this was a family newscast. Of course, you can watch Dave's final show right here tonight at 11:35, right after CBS 2 News at 11.
Taking a live look now outside the Ed Sullivan Theater in Midtown. As we've been talking about since the top of the hour, Maurice, we're preparing to say goodbye to David Letterman.
So what advice do New Yorkers have for the next chapter in Dave's life?
CBS 2's Jill Nicolini went out to find out.
Number one, chill out for a minute. You've been working 33 years straight. Take a break.
Fishing.
Why fishing?
Because it's calming. You get away. He doesn't like people. I mean, except for showing up here, he doesn't like people. So I think fishing would be perfect.
I would get some stretchy pants and lay down and just enjoy your family. Maybe take your son out and do some parent-teacher interviews.
Fellow talk show host and good friend Regis Philbin, who holds the record of most appearances on The Late Show with a total of 150, offers his advice on a once-a-week show.
And I'm telling you, Sunday night is it. And if Les Moonves is listening, this is it, Les. Sunday night. Let him have a wild time on Sunday night. We all could use it.
Number two, wake up and enjoy just hanging around in your pajamas. You know, chilling. It's kind of nice. You can get used to that.
Just enjoy retirement. Just take it easy.
Okay.
Keep laughing.
Paul Schaefer, who has been The Late Show's band leader and Letterman's sidekick, doesn't believe his friend will ever retire.
We're going to see something from David Letterman.
Schaefer told me Letterman is spending the summer with his family, but he won't lie down for long. So maybe he should go somewhere warm?
Dave, come down to South Beach, you know, enjoy life. I'll take care of you. Anything you need down there, I got you. Go on a boat.
I think you should go back to doing the weather.
And number three, just be Dave.
She couldn't have said it any better. Whatever Letterman decides to do in his retirement, we all wish him well.
Good night, everybody.
In Midtown, Jill Nicolini, CBS 2 News.
That's a nice closing shot right there. The biggest question fans want answered is who's going to be on the final show tonight. We've been asking you on our Facebook page who you want to see, and the number of people include Regis, Terry Garr, President Obama, and Dave's young son, Harry.
Well, he said in an interview on Sunday Morning that his wife and son will be there. We don't know if on camera.
They'll be in the audience, at least.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
This is what we call the CBS Affiliate Roundup. I hope you enjoy it.
The countdown is on to David Letterman's final Tonight Show.
This week, the retirement of Tonight Show host David Letterman.
All right, when we come back, just 3 more shows left for David Letterman on The Tonight Show.
The biggest Hollywood stars are making their final stops on The Tonight Show with David Letterman. You still like David Letterman?
I do like him,
I do too.
but you know, it's hard to watch the show sometimes.
Oh my goodness.
Countdown to Dave's final show. The Late Show with David Letterman. Don't miss a minute.
The last show, a final surprise. David Letterman, tonight at 11:35.
Last laughs tonight on The Late Show with David Letterman. He will retire after tonight's show. CBS 2's Lou Young joining us live from outside the Ed Sullivan Theater on Broadway, where fans have gathered for what we can call a history-making moment. Lou, right?
Yeah, Dana, and he's not finished working. Just a few minutes ago, Dave stuck his head out the stage door on 53rd Street on the side of the Ed Sullivan Theater and shocked the crowd there. He pretended to be surprised that they were gathered there, waved, went back inside, and is clearly having a good time on his final night here on the Ed Sullivan Theater. I'm told the final show is black tie. We watched the tuxedos arrive sometime earlier, and the show is packed with high-powered guests who also really entertain the crowd, just getting out of the limos and walking into the theater here, and a lucky audience is getting a first-hand look at TV history. Ring around the block at 53rd and Broadway, every eye on the Ed Sullivan Theater, and on the sidewalk, fans quickly sorted into haves and have-nots, as in tickets.
Red numbers 1 through 50.
Letterman's people make sure most seats inside go to real fans. These folks from Philly actually took a test online.
My wife knows all the answers. She knew who Todd, the intern, was. So you have to answer trivia questions to get the tickets.
All right, Late Show standby. This is going to be a little stressful. I need you to really listen for your names, okay?
Others were herded into a standby pen to fill out the house. This woman's from L.A., in on the red eye in the morning and on the way home after the show.
I was on my cell phone calling the standby line. I could not get through for like 3 hours, and I swear I don't even know how I got through.
For fans of a certain age, this ends a love affair that began in 1980, an obscure and unsuccessful daytime show on NBC.
The morning show between grammar school and high school, I watched it. Nobody else watched it, but the housewives hated it.
But it worked like a charm on late night. 33 years on TV total, mainstreaming the strange, Velcro walls, monkey cameras, dropping stuff from great heights, top 10 lists, and turning regular people, like a stage manager or the owner of a deli, into TV celebs. Most people here knew they had little chance of getting in for the final big show, but had fun watching the guests arrive.
Just sitting here. He's the best, and there's never going to be anybody like him.
We watched him go from daytime television oddity to late-night television icon. He jumped networks in the process. He survived heart surgery in public view. He got married. He became a father and shared that with us. And he grew old and made us feel better about doing the same thing that happens to all of us. And all the while, he made us laugh. We're live outside the Ed Sullivan Theater in Midtown. Lou Young, CBS 2 News.
I know it's not work for you, Lou. You're a very big fan. We look forward to more of your reporting tonight. Thanks, Lou. There have been some memorable guests over the years on The Late Show, and some frequent ones, too. So who was on David Letterman's show the most? Coming in at number 5, Tom Brokaw with 49 appearances. Marv Albert, number 4, 53 times. Number 3, the late Tony Randall on the show, 70 times. Columbus Zoo Director Emeritus Jack Hanna, number 2 with 75 appearances, and number 1, the person with the most appearances, Regis Philbin, 136 times on The Late Show with David Letterman. And Philbin doesn't think his days on TV are over. He thinks Dave should stay on the air, just scale back a bit. He's not the only one with some ideas for the 68-year-old.
It should be on Sunday. Don't work 5 days a week. Forget that. You're over that. Either they should be on right following the news on CBS at 11:35, or how about 10 to 11?
Maybe Dave should go do some stand-up.
I think Dave should go on a countrywide road trip.
I would get some stretchy pants. He's been in suits too long. He needs some stretchy pants.
I love the stretchy pants idea. For a look back at David Letterman's career and some classic clips, go to cbsnewyork.com. And of course, you can watch Dave's last show tonight, 11:35 p.m., right after Christine and Maurice on CBS 2 News at 11. Just that one show left. And coming up on the CBS Evening News with Scott Pauley, you're going to make a nice tribute to Dave as well, Scott.
Dana, that's right. We'll have a look back on the remarkable 33-year late-night career of David Letterman, the all-time king of late-night comedy. We'll have that and the rest of the world news for you on the CBS Evening News at 6:30.
Hello? It's me, you jerk.
We're talking about David Letterman a lot. It's so hard to believe it's his last show tonight.
Oh, my goodness, I got to tell you, it was one of the best moments of my career because the Letterman folks, yeah, they asked me to present the top 10 list for the top 10 things you don't want to hear your weatherman say during a blizzard.
Number 6.
Here are the current conditions for all you slobs too lazy to look out a window.
Thank you. Slobs. Number 5.
As temperatures drop, the melodrama in my voice will increase.
We'll look forward to that. Number 2.
I like your delivery. All right, I did it. I was on The Late Show 17 years ago. It was a Paul Schaefer spoof. Watch.
After I lost my job at the Late Show, I got angry.
Former Late Show band leader Paul Schaefer caused a disturbance this morning. A News 2 camera caught the action in Midtown.
That was really on the news. Yes, not.
Do you know David Letterman actually did a weather forecast on Monday? He said, outside right now, 68 and foggy. Oh, wait, that's me.
He did weather in Indiana way back when.
You betcha.
That's right, that's right. Whoopsie. That was cool, wasn't it? That was
cool,
nice.
thanks.
We were honored. Best of luck, Dave.
I screwed up.
No, I've been wanting to be on your show in the worst way for the longest time.
Well, you're on in the worst way, believe me.
You look sharp.
You haven't seen me naked.
We're going to keep it that way.
I've made jokes about you, not just one or two, not just ongoing here and there, intermittent, but...
Coming up, they admit they manipulated the stock market, the big banks that pled guilty today, and how that could impact consumer accounts. Plus, a CBS farewell to David Letterman. Coming up on the CBS Evening News with Scott Pauley.
The audience starting to leave the Ed Sullivan Theater after the final taping of The Late Show. CBS 2's Lou Young live on Broadway outside the theater. What are they saying, Lou?
Well, Dana, you know this was under tight security. We got very little information about what was going to be on the show, but the audience members tell me there were no fewer than 10 special guests on Dave's last show, all participating in a massive, epic final top 10 list. No one specific guest sat down and talked for a long time, but they said the Foo Fighters, Dave's favorite band, did play. There was lots of music, and Dave's wife and son also made guest appearances. Lots of smiles and some moist eyes. I'm working tonight, but I got the DVR set. We're live on Broadway. Lou Young, CBS 2 News.
You're a big fan. All right, Lou, we'll see your story later tonight and all the news on CBS 2 News at 11. Up next on the CBS Evening News with Scott Pauley, what consumers need to know about the massive airbag recall. Have a good night, and thank you, David Letterman.
Potentially deadly airbags must be replaced in millions of American cars. But what should drivers do in the meantime? Also tonight, Bin Laden's bookshelf, formerly secret documents recovered in the raid, reveal his obsession with 9/11 and himself. Tornadoes flatten homes in Texas and Oklahoma. The next threat is flooding. And the stars come out tonight to the end of a television era.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pauley.
Late today, hundreds of fans of David Letterman lined up at New York's Ed Sullivan Theater, and a constellation of celebrities turned out as well, all to witness television history.
It's The Late Show with David Letterman.
It's the last Late Show with David Letterman. He steps down tonight as the all-time king of late-night comedy. A record 33 years, 6,028 shows, and 19,932 guests.
And Joaquin, I'm sorry you couldn't be here tonight. Can you take the pepperoni off the pizza and leave it on the sidewalk?
Letterman's comedy routines became part of the culture. Moses may have introduced the world to the top 10 list, but Letterman made it funny.
And the #1 sleep recommendation from the National Sleep Foundation: when all else fails, watch Letterman.
Truth is, millions lost sleep to catch his monologue, which often delivered the punchline to an evening news headline. Did the New England Patriots cheat their way into the Super Bowl by deflating game balls?
There apparently are incriminating texts and emails about what they call Deflategate. Earlier today, Hillary announced that she would be happy to delete them.
And what's next for David Letterman? Here's what he told Jane Pauley on Sunday Morning.
I doubt that anybody will ever see me again.
You can catch Dave's last show after your late local news tonight right here on CBS. Dave, congratulations. We will miss you. And that's the CBS Evening News for tonight. For all of us at CBS News, all around the world, good night.
I understand you're looking for some unusual pets and things.
Oh, today is an exciting day. The neat thing
is it?
Yeah, it is. Today we have a dog that answers the phone. We have a talking dog. We have a goldfish that spits. And we have a gopher that darns, I believe.
As opposed to damning.
Yes, but it's great. Stupid pet tricks today. And also we've brought in a slow motion disc for instant replay of the stupid pet tricks.
I see.
That's what television is all about, huh?
And that's it?
And that's it? Yeah, we have a dog that answers the phone. That was a very young comedian named David Letterman back in 1980, before he had a late-night show, explaining to a slightly bewildered interviewer about what turned into one of his signature bits. Not just pet tricks, but specifically stupid pet tricks.
That's a great-looking dog. What is he going to do for us tonight, Marty?
He walks with a bag on his head.
Okay. Walks with a bag on his head, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah! Yeah! Yes, sir! Now, do you want me to hold it?
Yeah, just this part of this one you pull out.
Okay, I'll pull it out now.
Okay, would you do that?
Come on, Pauley. Come on, come on. Unbelievable!
Play dead.
Tonight, David Letterman is hosting his last show after 33 years. But when he started out, really, nobody could have predicted that this guy would become comedy's, Trojan horse, sneaking subversion to a generation and more, while disguised basically as an Indiana insurance salesman. Instead of becoming a new voice of authority from his perch at late night, a new version of the man on TV, David Letterman deliberately proceeded to break all of the rules of late night television.
We here at Late Night have a similar philosophy. It goes like this. Give me an 80-ton hydraulic press, and we can crush anything. Oh, a little syrup, sure. Hi, you want comedy? You want real comedy? All right, here we go. A parachute and a frozen turkey. Get ready to laugh till your jaws lock up. Here we go.
I love the sound of that bowling ball hitting concrete. Okay, Corinne, that's all right. I just fine-tune your aim here. It's okay. That should do something.
Why? Why not? It's just TV. Why not do anything you want on TV? David Letterman did not invent deliberate self-consciousness and irony, right? I mean, black people, gay people, Jews, the counterculture of all kinds, marginalized groups of all kinds that felt silence from mainstream America have all used outsider sarcasm and irony as a weapon of choice since the beginning of time, right? But here was this insider guy, right? In one of the plum jobs in all of entertainment, cheerfully crushing his late-night inheritance in his own weird outsidery way, 5 nights a week. And of course, as the years passed, David Letterman went on to become an American cultural phenomenon, and then an American cultural fixture, and then an American cultural institution. His influence so ubiquitous you can't remember the country without it. But just when it felt like everything in our culture was coated in layers of irony that he, of course, helped to popularize, David Letterman himself went the other way. He didn't just stick with irony, right? He went the other way, showing flashes of cantankerous, piercing honesty that were barely hinted at by the younger version of himself that got him to where he was.
Maybe you heard the big news. John McCain, Senator John McCain, Republican candidate for president, was supposed to be on the program tonight. Were you aware of that? Yeah. But he had to cancel the show because he's suspending his campaign because the economy is exploding. So at the last minute, he calls up and he says, I can't make it. I can't make it. And I said, what is the problem? And he said, well, the economy, he said, the economy is about to crater. So we find out today he didn't really leave till this morning.
Didn't go till this morning.
Thank you.
Can I give you an answer?
Please.
I screwed up.
I've been away for a while. While I was gone, I had quintuple bypass surgery on my heart. Oh! Plus, I got a haircut. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, after what I have been through, I am just happy to be wearing clothing that opens in the front. Keep this in mind, you're talking to a dumb guy, so I'm just going to ask you dumb guy questions. Okay. What happened to Al-Qaeda, and why does ISIS seem to hate us more than Al-Qaeda, and why does Al-Qaeda hate us in the first place?
Okay. Al-Qaeda's still there. They hate us as much as ever, but they also hate ISIS.
They hate ISIS.
Which is good. They hate ISIS. They think that ISIS is too extreme. And when that message is coming from Al-Qaeda, you know, it's time to listen.
I know you know exactly what happened. You know I know you know. And what it was some kind of horseplay. Am I right?
No.
Wait a minute. I was told it was horseplay. I'll just say this. When I say the words, ladies and gentlemen, Barack Obama, President of the United States, and I look over, and it's you walking over here, I get a little, you know, kind of a thing. It's overwhelming.
Well, Dave, let me just say this, and I mean this sincerely, and I know I speak for Michelle. She probably had a chance to say it herself. You know, we've grown up with you. The country, I think, has, you know, after a tough day at the office or coming home from work, knowing you've been there to give us a little bit of joy, a little bit of laughter, it has meant so much, and you know, you're part of all of us. And so,
well, thank you
to
thank you very much.
But you've given us a great gift, and we love you.
All that, and a goldfish that spits, and a dog that answers the phone, and another one that walks with a bag on his head. We will miss every single thing about David Letterman. We will miss you, David Letterman. Thank you for everything you've done. That does it for us tonight. We will see you again tomorrow. Now it's time for The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell. Good evening, Lawrence.
Rachel, that clip just put it in perspective for me about how long has Dave been doing this. When he started doing it, Barack Obama was in high school. And so when the president said, we grew up with you, he means it.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yes, he means it literally. Absolutely. Thanks, Lawrence.
Thanks, Rachel.
A lot of people think I'm retiring, and I've been kind of telling a fib. I have been forced to leave the job because I gave $75,000 to the Clinton Foundation. I'm sorry.
That was in Dave's opening monologue last night. A few hours ago, he taped his final show, which will be broadcast later tonight. The show apparently went 17 minutes over, so fix your DVRs. Scene entering the Ed Sullivan Theater on Broadway this evening for that final show were Steve Martin, Chris Rock, Alec Baldwin, Jerry Seinfeld, Peyton Manning, Tina Fey, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. CBS has released video of Dave's final entrance. Joining us now, a couple of friends of Dave's. Steve O'Donnell, who was David Letterman's head writer for 10 years, is in New York, and Jeff Martin, former writer for Late Night with David Letterman, here with me in Los Angeles. And Steve, I'm going to do something I've never done before. I have to begin by saying that Steve O'Donnell and I are not related. Now, that's something I've never said before because we were in college together, and the two great talented O'Donnells were Steve and his brother Mark, and they instantly, Jeff, isn't this true? They would instantly say, no, we're not related to that other O'Donnell guy. And I would always try to bask in the glory of the talented O'Donnell group.
Well, shame on you, Lawrence, but
right.
It's understandable.
So Steve...
well, Larry, I remember you as being one of the finest collegiate baseball players on the Eastern Seaboard.
You know, we don't have time for that tonight, I'm sorry to say. Steve, this has got to feel special. This is a big transition for an awful lot of people.
It is momentous, too highfalutin a word for an entertainment show, but it feels bittersweet and momentous.
Jeff, we've been looking at a bunch of old clips from the show this week. I want to show something that you were in, and this is one of those things where the writers end up as performers in the show. This is a classic example of that. Let's take a look at that.
Do we have that guy who was here earlier, the actor standing by back there? Hi, come on out. You're an actor, are you, sir?
Actually, I'm an actor-singer.
Actor-singer, great, that'll be fine. What we want you to do is just take this letter, crumple it up, and toss it away.
Okay.
All right, good luck. We'll see what happens. Have an actor-singer here to take care of this for us. Go ahead, anytime. Go ahead. Actor-singer.
The actor-singer is dead!
No.
It happened again! We've killed 2 actor-singers!
I don't know.
That's like killing 4 people!
4 people, yeah.
It is hard to have more fun than that at work, isn't it?
It was truly fun. It was, and you reminded we tried to get this surreal circus going.
Yeah.
With Larry Bud Melman and Chris Elliott under the seats and the monkey cam and throwing stuff off buildings. And but I think the thing that made it all work was that guy, the ringmaster of the circus, was kind of bemused and detached and not so zany, was he?
Steve, Al Franken wrote a loving op-ed piece in the Boston Globe the other day about this, and he reminded me in that of something that I remember hearing at the time, that Johnny Carson actually kind of literally owned the show. And there were certain rules when the show began following Johnny, and those rules limited how much you could do in monologue, didn't it?
They were the best rules we could have gotten, and they really helped the show form itself and identify itself. We couldn't have a big orchestra like Doc Severinsen had, so we had a tight little Paul Schaefer band. We couldn't do a long monologue, so we did what we called opening remarks, and that turned out to be good for the show. It seemed tighter, smaller, less cumbersome, odder, you know, newer. For the time, it just seemed lighter on its feet. Also, speaking of band leaders, you picked a great clip with Paul Shaffer and the actor-singer, just because it demonstrated how much Paul Shaffer played in the comedy of the show, because he could do that kind of feverish melodrama that Dave would not try. He would do the spit takes. He would do the panic that you could not get to Dave to do. Dave would provide plenty of other things, but it was a great recipe for a lot of different bits to have Paul there.
I just want to keep showing the genius that you guys came up with. And Steve, you wrote a great piece for the New York Times with your top 10 bits from the show, and we're going to show some of those, including what we are about to show, which is, of course, the great Larry Bud Melman. And here he is welcoming people to New York City at the Port Authority bus station.
Welcome to New York, sometimes called Fun City. And where are you?
From the Eastern Shore of Virginia.
Oh, do you have any questions about New York? Well, it isn't easy, that's for sure. Did you have a snack on the way?
Steve, Dave wasn't an easy laugh, was he? I mean, for him to be literally spun around in his chair by a bit, it really had to crack him up.
Well, he was very particular. I mean, he has a very sharp and he's very skeptical. But I think he is kind of a good laugh. If there's a funny combination of words or a good joke, he's a good laugher. He certainly was amused by Melman, who was a 1 in a billion character. I mean, quite a singular individual, someone who in his 60s becomes a TV star but couldn't use a Bic lighter or step up on a step stool without getting dizzy.
And just for the record, actually, real name, Calvin DeForest, an actual actor hired to play.
Calvert DeForest,
yes.
And actually had some famous actors in his lineage of the name of DeForest and Calvert.
Who would have known?
No, he dwelled in obscurity.
Holds the gold for the next segment. We're going to take a little break and be right back with more of Backstage with David Letterman.
Unusual weather for New York City today. It was 68 and foggy. Oh, no, wait a minute. That's me. I'm sorry. That's me.
That was Dave from a couple of days ago. We're back with Steve O'Donnell and Jeff Martin, former writers for the David Letterman Show. Steve, you isolated, one of the things you isolated in your New York Times piece was the moment where Johnny Carson appeared on Dave's show. And we've seen in the last week everybody in the late night business singing Dave's praises, and Johnny was the one that Dave idolized. Let's watch that moment when Johnny appeared.
This is not the list. Johnny, can I have the top 10 list?
This is a truly amazing moment, Steve, because they never stopped clapping. They just never stopped. It looks pretty obvious that Johnny had something to say. He was ready to say something.
It's somehow more wonderful that he doesn't have to say a word, that he comes in, he basks, and he exits.
And he gave up, and he couldn't get that crowd to listen to him, and so he just thought, this is enough of this. Jeff Martin, are we ever going to see this moment with David Letterman walking on anyone else's show?
What? No, I don't. Maybe. He's hinted at it. What hits me watching these guys is how different they were, where Carson was the epitome of what you thought a talk show host had to be, smooth and upbeat and very, very positive feelings about show business. And what was so new about Letterman was he could be cranky, awkward, and maybe above all, he seemed to look at show business and hold it at arm's length. Like, isn't this a little ridiculous?
Yeah. Steve, there was always this this kind of apparent lack of polish with Dave, but it seemed at the same time intentional. He wasn't trying to hide it.
Yes, a lack of polish, to let the stagehands be seen, let the mistakes happen, let the prop fall apart. And we also had not very high quality guests. In the first year or two, there'd be a lady with dressed up parrots and so on. But as the time went by and we started booking people, I remember the dizzy night when Cher first came on, or when Bob Dylan and Liberace were on the same show. A few years in, you go, well, all right, things are changing now. And Dave used to joke, welcome to our extravaganza, but actually, over the years, did become an extravaganza.
And finally, the last word has been delivered on this show by a talented O'Donnell. Steve O'Donnell and Jeff Martin, thank you both very much for joining me tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Chris Hayes is up next.
Live from the CBS Broadcast Center in New York City, this is CBS 2 News at 11.
It's The Late Show with David Letterman.
Since 1982, David Letterman has made us laugh every single night as television's longest-running late show host ever. Tonight, after parties are underway in the city. In less than 35 minutes, the world will watch him take his final bows. And a live picture outside the iconic Ed Sullivan Theater tonight, where the Late Show's final taping wrapped up earlier tonight. Good evening, everyone. I'm Maurice Dubois.
And I'm Christine Johnson. It is hard to believe this is it. You can see the clock counting down the minutes until the show on the lower right-hand corner of your screen there. And we've got plenty of coverage leading up to it. It begins with Lou Young. He is live in Midtown for us tonight. Lou?
Yeah, the marquee is lit, but the stage inside is dark. The Ed Sullivan Theater has hosted its final Late Show with David Letterman. TV history made tonight. The last we saw of him was a glimpse through the stage door, all smiles and a wave to the crowd. Letterman's people kept a lid on security for the show itself, releasing only the first few moments. His final run across the stage at the Ed Sullivan Theater, and the audience wildly cheering. Many were still giddy when they emerged out onto the street 90 minutes later.
I just feel honored. It's a privilege to be one of the 450 people in the world to have experienced Dave Letterman's final show.
It was the end of an era. It was so touching. It was wonderful.
It was fantastic. Paul Schaefer with his outfit, that beautiful outfit that he was wearing, the orchestra, the music, and then when Dave Letterman came out, it was like moving. It was energetic.
It's the last of a 33-year run, 3 time slots, 2 networks, and a universe of strange humor, stupid pet tricks, top 10 lists, Velcro walls, and dropping stuff from great heights. That's always a big hit.
I hope he throws something now for the last time, from the top.
None of that at this final outing, but there were surprises.
What was the surprising part about it? Well, obviously the top 10 list. That was shocking.
The final show has an extraordinary number of big names. Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Steve Martin, Jim Carrey, Peyton Manning, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Tina Fey, and Letterman's now ex-boss, the president and CEO of CBS, Les Moonves. After it was over, staff members dispersed. Many went to an after-party, and many others wondered about the next gig. You recognize Felicia from the band?
If you need me, just flash a F up in the sky.
For his part, Letterman left avoiding the cameras and crowds, consistent with the impression he made with his final audience.
I've never seen such a humble man in my life. He was just amazing.
Yeah, and we wanted that final shot of Dave waving to the crowd and people cheering, but he had other ideas. While people waited around the corner at the office entrance for him to leave in a fake limousine, it was a decoy, he walked out that pizza place door connected to the theater right over there and just walked on out, a white jacket, head down, headed north on Broadway, just another New Yorker heading off to the next thing. He didn't want all the praise. We're live tonight in Midtown. Lou Young, CBS 2 News.
Lou, thank you. And when Dave snuck out that door, he headed to the after party at the Museum of Modern Art. The party filled with staffers, including longtime stage manager Biff Henderson. A handful of celebrities also showed up, including Ray Romano and also Steve Martin. Steve Martin also sent his well wishes to Dave via Twitter. He tweeted, quote, "Congratulations to David Letterman, who I now believe is beginning his 3rd career in show business. Betty White wrote, quote, "Tonight is Letterman's final late show. We love each other so much. I will miss him so, but look out, I'll find him." Thanks, Dave.
And there is still much more David Letterman coverage still ahead tonight at 11, including a look back at more of the most memorable moments on the show. Some of those include some familiar faces from here at CBS 2. We've pulled those out of the vault. And what do you think was the most watched Letterman show ever? We will have that coming up a little bit later on.
All right, looking at some news headlines now.
Live look tonight at the Ed Sullivan Theater, where David Letterman taped his final program. You're going to see it, in about 15 seconds. We thank you for joining us tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Now, a moment, 33 years in the making. The final late show with David Letterman starts right now.
Hey, Dave, this one's for you, as you would do it. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Dave.
My fellow Americans, our long national nightmare is over.
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 Our long national nightmare is over. Letterman is retiring.
You're just kidding, right?
Welcome back to Hardball. David Letterman signed off last night with a funny and classy goodbye to 14 million people watching. Let's watch a bit.
It's beginning to look like I'm not going to get the Tonight Show.
I don't think.
Best line of the night. He offered some of his self-deprecating Midwest humor as well. Humor.
People come up to me all the time and they say, "Dave, I've been watching you since your morning show," and I always say, "Have you thought about a complete psychological workup?"
And he acknowledged his own family.
I want to thank my own family, my wife, Regina, and my son, Harry. Thank you.
Joining us right now is Los Angeles Times television critic, the great Steve Battaglia. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. What did you make of last night? I had to go to bed because I had to fly out here to this beautiful city. By the way, the picture behind me is not a painting or a mural or some green sheet. That's this beautiful city in the Bay, San Francisco Bay, just so that people know that. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, first I want to say I'm not the critic for the Los Angeles Times. We have a Pulitzer Prize-winning TV critic, Mary McNamara. I covered media and television. I thought the show was terrific because it was David Letterman as we have loved him over the years. It didn't get too schmaltzy, didn't get too sappy, didn't get caught up in all of those sort of show business farewell, sentimental cliches. It was pure Letterman. It was the stuff that we really liked about him, making fun of himself. And I also think that what you showed there, that opening tape, which had 4 presidents in it, I think that tells you how important this show was to the national conversation. You had to connect with Dave if you wanted to connect with America.
Wow, well, here's Letterman with some of the presidential hopefuls after they stumbled. Let's watch some of the fun.
Rick Perry, excuse number 9.
I don't know what you're talking about. I think things went well.
What exactly happened?
Can I give you an answer?
Please.
I screwed up. I have no proof, but I have a feeling Canada is planning something.
You can always count on. What did you make of the comment by Howard Stern the other day? I thought it was brilliant. David Letterman's not a comic, a stand-up comic. He's more of a broadcaster, a guy like Stern, I guess, if you want to stretch it, who basically keeps you interested in the way his mind works. You want to know what he's going to do in the next segment after the commercial, so you stick with him.
He is a comic, I mean, and he is a comic personality, but I think over the years what's happened is that he's become a great conversationalist. What Dave says he likes to do best is to talk to interesting people in front of an audience. And he really moved away from the type of stunts that you saw him do, the found comedy outside of the studio that was really groundbreaking at the time. But, you know, after a while, you know, when you get to be into your 60s, maybe it didn't play as well anymore, and he really found a new place for himself as someone who can comment, maybe look with a raised eyebrow about what's going on in the world and say interesting, funny stuff. And it was a very intimate relationship that he had. You know, being on in late night, you are probably watching alone or maybe with your spouse. Yeah. It's the end of the day. You're winding down. You just want good company. And Dave always managed to be that. He got away from that edgy comedy that he was doing that really made his name in the 1980s and 90s, and just became, you know, more of a person that you just wanted to be with, I think.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with time of day, as you suggested. Larry King was always great at midnight, driving across the country, where I did a couple of times. Larry was the greatest company in the world in the middle of the night with somebody like Don King for an hour. And David Letterman was great late at night. King didn't work in the daytime. David Letterman didn't work in the daytime. Ellen DeGeneres works in the daytime. It's so fascinating how people find their sweet spots. Anyway,
but Ellen does a very different type of show. Ellen does a very different type of show. That's really a variety comedy show, and really it's very produced. It doesn't depend that much on that, the type of conversation that Letterman does. Although, I mean, she does engage with the audience. And again, I mean, it's companionship television. I think what all these talk shows are, and that's why they work. If the person behind the microphone or in front of the camera is good.
I agree. Conan O'Brien, by the way, he said he owes a great deal to Letterman, and last night he encouraged his own audience, never saw this before, on TBS, to switch over to The Late Show. Let's watch something unusual.
If there happen to be a few of you out there, probably stoners, I'm going to let you know. I know my crowd. I'm going to let you know. I'm going to let you know the exact moment when Dave's show is starting, and I'd like you to switch over.
Thank you so much. Thanks, by the way, Steve Battaglia. Thank you, buddy, for joining us tonight.
Welcome to The Late Show. I want to tell you one thing. I'll be honest with you. It's beginning to look like I'm not going to get the Tonight Show. I don't think.
There wasn't a dry eye in the place. That's the line you often read or hear about the big farewells. Well, all the eyes were dry in David Letterman's farewell last night, especially Dave's. He never cracked. He kept smiling, and he kept us laughing. The last deeply emotional moment on Dave's stage came from Norm Macdonald last week.
I know that Mr. Letterman is not for the mawkish, and he has no truck for the sentimental. But if something is true, it is not sentimental. And I say in truth, I love you.
The subject of last night's star-studded top 10 list was things I've always wanted to say to Dave.
Your extensive plastic surgery was a necessity and a mistake.
I'm just glad your show is being given to another white guy.
Thanks for finally proving men can be funny.
Dave did 11 minutes of thank yous before handing the show over to the music of the Foo Fighters and a high-speed montage of decades of Dave. Here were David Letterman's last words to his audience.
Throughout the years of this show and the show at NBC, I have been blessed and lucky to work with men and women who are smarter than I am and funnier than I am. The people who watch this show, there's nothing I can do to ever repay you. Thank you for everything. You've given me everything. And thank you again. All right, that's pretty much all I got. The only thing I have left to do for the last time on a television program, thank you and good night.
Joining us now, one of those guys who Dave says is smarter and funnier, former Letterman writer Kevin Curran. Also joining us by phone, Pulitzer Prize-winning television critic and Daily Beast contributor Tom Shells. Tom Shells, I'm so glad you could join us tonight after that final show. First of all, Tom, your review of Dave's final show.
Very entertaining, which is what he would want it to be. And as you said, not emotional particularly. There wasn't, I'm not sure both of the eyes in my house are dry. I got a little emotional. Because, you know, he impacted the culture, to use that dull academic language. He really, that show, even though it wasn't #1 in the time period and all that stuff, the top 10 list and the expressions he used and the whole attitude he represented, the idea of found comedy and all that, using real people and instead of scripting everything, all those things and many more will be influencing comedy for years and years to come and will be imitated for years to come. I just don't think the imitators are likely to be as good as Dave was. I do wonder if some of that stuff about all these people are more talented than I am and I'm just dope and I just do a job, I think that's false modesty. It's a bit of a pose. I think Dave probably thinks pretty highly of himself, but he doesn't like to say those things out loud. It's a kind of a Midwestern trait, I think. And so he keeps talking himself down, self-deprecating remarks, and so on. But he's one of the great entertainers, I think, in the history of the medium.
Kevin, talk about how Dave feels about it, because my impression from you writers who I've known forever is that Dave, I get the impression he was never really satisfied with any given show, that he was always thinking, oh, this could be better, and pushing for it to be better.
I think that's definitely true. He definitely has a perfectionist streak to himself.
Perfectionist, yeah.
Yes, and he's very, very hard on himself. I remember just reading an article recently where he said the motivating factors in his life were guilt and fear of failure. Yeah. Which is, I guess, motivations for lots of us, but for someone who is actually funnier and smarter than anyone else I've ever met, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, yeah. Tom, this show's place in history, I'm sitting here with Kevin Curran. He won 3 Emmys there. Other writers who were there longer won more Emmys there. The show was nominated. I try to figure out how to describe how much this show was nominated. It won the Emmy for Best Show in its category several times. I lost track of that. But it's more than Emmys, Tom. And what you've written about the show, it really had a huge generational impact.
Yes, and I hate to be gloomy about it, but I do have a sad feeling we're seeing the last, not just of the David Letterman show, but of, well, he was like the last of his generation, I think, to be that big a star on television. Television, as you know, has splintered up into almost 1 million channels, and instead of 3 networks, which we had 50 years ago when Dave was growing up and I was, you know, now we have a woodworking channel and a trout fishing channel and all of that. And I don't think we're going to have the kind of unity we had, and this is really a truism by this point, that we had with Dave. And, you know, it was even greater with Johnny Carson. When Johnny said goodnight, I think there were like 50 million viewers. When Dave said goodnight, there were like 13, 15 million viewers, and less than half. And that's no reflection on Dave. It's just the way the medium has changed, and of course the fact that the internet has intervened and has splattered us all with all these other new choices. So the whole kind of consensus culture that Dave somewhat represented, like he was the last of it, I think. I don't think we're going to have it as much anymore. I don't know if there'll even be another Star Wars or Jaws or movies as hugely popular as that. I may be wrong, and maybe I'm overstating the case, but I felt very sad as I was watching the final Dave Letterman shows these past few weeks. Just very sad about what we were losing.
Well, yeah, what is absolutely statistically true is that a hit on television today requires many, many fewer viewers than a hit on television even just 10 years ago required. We're going to go to a break, but before we do, I just want to show something from last night's show, which was Dave with kids. And this is actually stuff that I had forgotten. It was all new to me when I saw it. Let's watch this as we go up.
Try and guess my favorite food. Now, come on. Come on, just give it a try. Come on. Here, I'll give you a hint, all right? Pie. Try it. Try and guess my favorite food.
Pie.
Nope. Meatloaf.
I want you to hold it down at this end like this.
Okay, well, you're down there. Why don't you do it?
It's not dangerous.
Okay.
Normally. Dashing through the snows. Oh, jingle bells, jingle. You gotta be quiet. You are not funny.
Welcome to Taco Bell. What do you want?
I'd like 2, 3 cheese melt.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm not exactly a computer. Slow down. Let's try it again.
Medium Diet Coke.
Medium relative to what?
Halfway between the small and the large.
Okay, check. We got it. We can do that.
You sound familiar.
I'm the manager, Kenny.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
We'll get your food. You'll be on your way.
Are you Howard Stern?
We'll be right back.
There's always signs along the way, and I think one of the signs was Todd, the cue card kid, came up to me and he said, "For the love of God, Dave, I can't write the words any bigger." Remember that? Okay, all right. Fine, all right.
Kevin Curran, those of us who worked in show business know that it's very hard to find writers who don't think they're way smarter than the people they're writing for. I don't know a Letterman writer who isn't full of respect for Dave.
I think that's very true. I don't know of any either. There have been many writers over the years. It's just, there's something about him that is just, he is your older brother, he's your mentor, he's a protection against the network, he's a smart and funny guy, and you feel like you're on the same team with him, and you feel like you really respect this guy that you're working for, which is not always the case.
Yeah, and Tom Shales, remember, you're hearing that from writers who, as you know, with any writers in comedy, most of the stuff they've offered Dave, he's rejected, and they still are in awe of him.
And he probably rejects a lot of what he does himself, because, you know, those very funny bits, like where he becomes the guy at the drive-through window at McDonald's or wherever they were, you know. They may, I don't know, maybe they had to shoot the 3 hours to get 2 minutes of that. I don't know. But the stuff Dave came up with, I don't think was written for him in advance. I mean, he had a great mind. Well, he still does, as far as we know. But, I mean, he was so fast and so sharp. And the ad-libs were always from somewhere where you wouldn't have ever thought of them yourself. Maybe some of the great Letterman writers would have. But, I mean, most people, most comedians, I don't think, would come up with the brilliantly funny things he said. And there was a lot of satire in what he did as well, a kind of instant satire. And they talk about found comedy, you know, but you have to know where to look for it. You have to know it when you see it, too. You can't just find it by wandering down the street. And he had great instincts, great instincts.
He did. He did. You know, Rob Burnett, head writer of the show, former head writer of the show, said in the New York Times today, if Dave, this week, if Dave were still putting on a Velcro suit and jumping on walls, I think it would be foolish. I'm not so sure about that, and that's the way I want to go out of this. That, as Kevin Curran knows, was written, Velcro Man, written by Sandy Frank, who's no longer with us. He won 4 Emmys at the David Letterman show. And what I want as our last word about David Letterman on this program, I want it to, by and about David Letterman, I want it to be Velcro Man. Let's take one more look at that.
Okay, can you?
Kevin Curran and Tom Shales, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Chris Hayes is up next.